Hi guys, welcome. So I know time zones are a little tricky, but we all appreciate you being here for this webinar. I'm just going to introduce us really quick. So I'm going to be co-hosting this webinar with Nicole. Our Q&A manager is Janae. So if you have any questions, just send those to her. And we have our webmasters, Riddy and Sonia. So they'll just be managing the logistics. I'm going to introduce our special guests now. So the first is Miss Theresa Tran, who just requested that we call her Theresa, an expert on the topics of brand strategy and marketing, and in the past has worked with um, Michael Jordan as leader of communications for the Jordan brand, and after she has also created her own consultancy, The Offense, to aid people in their goals with expanding their businesses and help them with marketing. And I know entrepreneurship is quite an intimidating thing to think of, but it's also a goal that many of us have. So if you guys want to know what it's like being in the sports or entertainment industry, you can send those questions to Janae again. And our second guest is Miss Monica Aksamit, which also she just requested to be called Monica. The 2016 US Olympic bronze medalist in the women's fencing event, but also a woman of many talents. She has experience in the modeling industry and has participated in events that we all admire on the television and online, like Emmys, New York Fashion Week, etc. She also created her own podcast, which we were having a conversation about earlier, which is called On the Fence with Monica Aksamit, which has weekly episodes premiering now. And I honestly admire how much you've traveled the world. And as you can see, many of the girls here are from all over the world. And being able to travel while maintaining a successful career is something we aren't really told much about at a young age. And it's just something that I'm sure a lot of people would want to know more about. So, again, any questions you have for Monica, you can send to Janae. So, welcome, Theresa. Welcome, Monica. We're very excited to have you. So, we were wondering if you guys could tell us a little bit about yourselves, like where you're based, how long you've been working in your field, maybe something that people don't know about you. We could start with Theresa, I guess.
Hi, guys. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you guys for inviting me and Monica to be part of this. I'm Theresa Tran. I'm physically in New York City right now. I've had my own business, The Offense, for 14 years. Prior to that, I was the head of communications at Nike for the Jordan brand. And I had worked in corporate America for quite some time, basically since I got out of college. And actually, as a matter of fact, I worked kind of all through high school and college, to be honest. I've always kind of had an office job since I was 14 years old. So, but I went into corporate right away. And then from corporate, I went into entrepreneurship, launched my own company in 2006. I do marketing communications, social media activations, talent management, sort of a whole, range of things, mainly in the sports and entertainment industry, which is how I met Monica when I had just come back from the 2016 Olympics, having worked with a number of athletes there. Met her, did a couple projects with her, and we have sort of been in each other's orbit and have been, closely connected to each other ever since.
I like to call it friends, but she calls it connected closely.
We are friends, yes, as well.
My name is Monica Aksamit. Thank you guys for coming. We're not all morning people, I understand. I am a 2016 Olympic bronze medalist, as well as, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of things. I guess YouTuber, content creator, model, started my own podcast 3 weeks ago. I am based in New York as well. I actually grew up in Poland and New Jersey, but I now live in New York. When did I start? I started fencing when I was about 9 years old. I mean, all my different titles started at different times. Started fencing at 9. I decided I wanted to become an Olympian at the age of 14. Heard a lot of no's, but kept going. Went on to Penn State University. And then in 2016, became an Olympic bronze medalist. And that's about when kind of everything else started happening, like content creation. I signed with my first modeling agency. And then, like I said, the podcast happened a month ago.
I think it's also really important that I wanted Monica here with me, not only because, again, we work together and we're friends, and I thought it would be so much more fun to have a, you know, counterpart with me, but just to sort of show the opposites of where we come from. You know, she's Polish, I'm Vietnamese. She grew up in New Jersey, I grew up in Oregon. You know, she went to college, Penn State University, on a full ride scholarship. I paid my way all through college and worked my way all through college. She pursued a path in sports, I pursued a path in business. You know, she went on to be a pro athlete and win gold or win Olympic medals, and I have not, right? But here we are together in this room. And I think that what connects her and I together at the end of the day is that we are very self-made, self-driven, self-sufficient women who have just taken the world in our own hands, and we have just pursued the path that we feel is right for us, but nobody has told us yes or no, because we've chosen that path for ourselves. And we just wanted to show you guys sort of like the opportunity, and it doesn't really matter where you come from or what circumstances you have, we can all end up here together with our with the same level of success. So thank you, Monica, for your time.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, both of you. And we just wanted to know, you guys talked about how like you've had people say no before. If you are open to it, if you could talk to us about one of the struggles you've had and like how you overcame it. Maybe we could start with Theresa first.
I mean, I'm a minority and a woman, and I think working in sports, you're fighting for inclusion and diversity your entire career, right? So you almost walk into rooms with like check marks against you. And so I feel like my motivation every day has been to try to prove people wrong. Even if I don't get outright no's from people, I do get doubted. You can read it when people doubt you. You can read it when people are second guessing you. You can read it when you haven't quite like earned their respect and you have to walk into a room, you know, having, you know, your information together and your knowledge together so that you can basically start to prove them wrong. So I kind of feel like it's just sort of, it's in me, it's in my blood that everywhere I am, every room I walk into, every situation I'm in professionally, that I'm having to kind of outwork or outprove the next person. So yeah, so I don't really get direct no's, you know, I get a lot of that passive aggressiveness in this industry, and I just try to assume that I have to work extra hard to earn people's respect.
For me, I've gotten direct, maybe not like, I don't know, just words of kind of like judgment whenever I've said I wanted to do something. So since then I've kind of, most goals of mine I keep to myself, or I'll tell close friends. I don't broadcast it. But even from the age of 14, when, like I said, when I decided that I wanted to become an Olympian, I even got like those kinds of statements from my family. So I was watching the 2004 Olympics in Athens, Greece, where Mariel Zagunis, my teammate actually in Rio, won the first ever gold medal for women's saber, which is my weapon. And when I was watching it, I literally was just, I couldn't get like leave the TV. That's all I wanted to watch. My grandparents were like, well, why don't you come eat? And I was like, no, like, do you understand? Like the history is being made here. And I finished watching that. And that's when I was so inspired. And I was like, this is going to be me one day. I'm going to go in Olympics. And I remember my grandma and my grandpa kind of were like, okay, sounds good. You can do that. And then I did the same thing when I came back home to the States. I told my mom I want to become an Olympian. And she's like, okay, sweetie, sure. But like, you can hear in the tone of her voice of kind of her being like, this dream is crazy, but like, all right, sounds good. And I've heard that later on in life, like whenever in high school, everybody knew about it, that I wanted to become an Olympian. And I was that crazy girl missing school. I missed like 70 days of senior year of high school where I almost didn't graduate, but the school knew that I was missing these days. My grades were still great. I had straight A's, but I always just heard these like, oh, that's the crazy girl that thinks she's going to make an Olympic team. Or I would tell somebody, they'd be like, that's impossible. Like, you're from little Matawan, New Jersey. Like, people don't do that. I'm one of 2 Olympians. I'm the only medalist from my town. And people looked at me like I was crazy. For years, I had that whole situation. If I didn't do well at a tournament, they're like, see, like the Olympics aren't in your future. And I just kept going. The word no Like, it gives me so much power. I love proving people wrong. I like to call it, I'm stupid stubborn. When I decide I want to do something, I don't care what anybody says about it. My family complains all the time because they're like, this is stupid. I'm like, okay, but I'm gonna do it. I decide to do it. I'm gonna do it. Works out, it works out. It doesn't, it doesn't. And there was points where my mom doubted me too, like when we were in Olympic running, and she's like, do you think this is possible? Maybe you should stop wasting your time. I was like, no, I decided, we're 3 years in or 2 years in. I decided I'm going to do it. Might as well see it through. And that's kind of just been with everything. Same thing with entering the modeling world. When you see women in magazines, you're not seeing athletic, strong women. You're seeing the skinny girls, which I don't know, I grew up seeing, and at the same time, I don't know, I have insecurities because I've grown up seeing those women, right? Like, I see my legs, they're strong, that's what I need. I hate them because that's not what I've seen in my entire life growing up. And actually, a lot of girls at the age of like 14, 15 quit sports because they start gaining muscle. And that's heartbreaking. The fact that that's what's going to stop girls going after their dreams is because they've been seeing these skinny women on magazines and movies, all that stuff. So when I wanted to sign with an agency, I also heard no. And I had a few agencies tell me that they're not going to sign me and I'm never going to get signed because I'm too muscular. There isn't a path for muscular women. And then when I signed with one agency, but they just weren't sending me to jobs. And I spoke to Ford where I signed, and they're like, we love your idea. We want to do the same thing. We want to help put out athletic women. We want to help inspire those young girls to go after their dreams. So yeah, like I said, in my entire life, I've pretty much been hearing the word no. I've learned that, you're going to fail no matter what you're doing, regardless, and that shouldn't stop you from going after your dreams.
And it's funny you say that, Monica, about your family, because I feel like sometimes the people who actually say no or doubt you the most are the people closest to you. And
Yep.
maybe it's because they care about you so much that they don't want to see you fail, or they don't want to see you hurt, or they don't want to see you disappointed. So I've had the same thing growing up, when I wanted to leave corporate America, which is like the safety cushion of life, right? You're leaving a good stable job, a regular paycheck, health insurance, benefits, all those things. When I told my parents I wanted to leave and start my own company, they had the same kind of reactions that Monica's family did. It's like, are you sure? Okay. They didn't quite believe, and they didn't quite know what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, how I was going to make money for myself, how I was going to pay for my living expenses and my insurance. And, you know, I grew up in a family that's very much based on safety and security, partly because we are immigrants in America. We came to America with nothing. So I think that fear of like famine probably makes my parents want the best for me, which is as much safety and security and a solid job as possible. So I had to use you know, their worry as my motivation to prove them wrong. So to be honest with you, even to this day, I'm 47 years old and I wake up every day motivated by like making my parents proud still. I'm still that little girl that it's like, I'm going to make mom and dad proud today, and that still drives me to this day.
Yeah, I feel that too, going off of that. I think a lot of parents, especially immigrants, because it was a hard life for them to figure things out here or whether it was in a different country. I think they're always the most anti doing something that's not comfortable. I mean, in general,
Mhm.
people are afraid of things that aren't comfortable, right? Because this is what you do this every day, you have that job security, and it's scary to leave that. But just because it's safe, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily the right path for you. Like, things can be done as what we've shown you, that you can still be successful, not being comfortable.
Thank you guys for that. I understand that a lot of us are just a little bit terrified, or a little bit like scared to approach people who we admire in our life, people like our parents, to maybe give them an idea that they're not exactly the most comfortable with. We kind of have this innate fear of just kind of getting rejected by your own family because of something that you're motivated to do, which is just, it's really scary. And seeing you guys being so successful after your own dreams is just something that we can all take inspiration from. And it's very nice to see that, especially from two women in completely different fields. So I just thought that that was very admirable. In terms of companies and entrepreneurship, is there any misconceptions about leadership, about entrepreneurship that you can give us advice about? Stuff that maybe like we hear all the time, but just might not necessarily be true.
Um, I'd probably say what Monica and I have in common a lot in our respective worlds is the fact that our work takes us on the road a lot. We're traveling constantly. And I think the one biggest misconception is they think that our job is so glamorous, right? We travel to many different countries. We get to see, you know, interesting exotic places, places that you would never go to on your own dime, on your own time. You know, and they don't realize that it comes with a lot of non-glamorous sides of things, right? From the way that you travel to having lost luggage to going an entire day on the road without even having food to eat because you're just running around working, training, traveling, moving from one place to the next. You barely get to sightsee. So even if you're in a car driving by in a taxi and you see a landmark and you take a picture, people think that you spent the whole day sightseeing when really I got to take that picture for 2 seconds driving by because I had no time to sightsee. You know, I've had to show up at, you know, big productions and shoots in my hotel bath slippers because my luggage got lost the night before when I landed, you know, at the airport. You know, I've had to do my own laundry in the bathtub of my hotel rooms because I didn't want to charge my client how much it costs to do laundry. You know, so it's like you just think about all these things where it's not glamorous, guys. It is hard work. It's a grind, and it puts a toll on your body, you know, to be in different time zones, different eating and sleeping schedules, and then also having to physically have the energy to get your work done. So I'm sure you agree, Monica.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but I definitely agree with that. Like I remember post Olympics where that's where people care about you the most. You're irrelevant before the Olympics. Um, a little bit afterwards, like I'm not getting calls nonstop for interviews or events, stuff like that, like I was that time. And it was a lot. There were so many events that I was going to where I was dreading them, but because I knew I could meet somebody. So like I remember going to a Yankees game. We had box seats, amazing opportunity, but I was like, I just want to sleep. I physically could not make myself go up and shake hands and talk to people, but that didn't matter because you don't know who you might meet. You don't know what opportunities might come. So you're just kind of like, okay, I got this. And you kind of have to, and again, like what we were saying of like, there's times where you're not able to sleep because of jet lag, or you're just in a hotel that's very loud, or the beds are uncomfortable. And you're like, all right, well, I need to suck it up and I need to wake up. I need to talk to these people and I need to have a big smile on my face. So I feel like that's something that people don't talk about.
Yeah, I think that is a big misconception because like when we see everyone's Instagram stories, especially like people we admire, that's something we haven't seen. So that's really interesting. In terms of like, we wanted to know if like what you guys do on a typical day. Like I know it's different because of quarantine, but like what does like a typical day in your field, I guess, like look like? Theresa, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, I have my own business and I have probably like 5 to 7 different clients that I work on any given day, but every day is different. You know, on any given day, I could be working on a crisis management plan for a client because something came up in the news that needs to be managed and responded to in the right way with a lot of delicate handling. On another day, I could be handling like an influencer campaign where a brand wants me to, you know, procure influencers for them to be posting about their product on the brand's product on the influencer social channels. I might be working on, you know, a launch event, you know, for a client who's coming out with a product, right? And I'm coming up with, you know, the concept, the event. If we were in a normal world, like the physical guest list of who's coming, what the event looks like, what the experience is on site. how to set up the look and feel, the decor. So there's that. There's sometimes me just writing just traditional press releases, which I then service out to media that I work with. And then sometimes it's just ad hoc, stuff from just planning and strategy with my clients to just, brainstorming sessions on what a creative campaign can be. So every day is different, but every day, everything that I do falls under this public facing marketing communications umbrella. And there's planning involved and there's execution involved. So I'm kind of involved from the whole process, beginning to end.
It's hard to think back on what my normal day was like before quarantine. I literally just sat the entire time she was talking. I was like, what did my life look like? But
I could
also
probably
there's
tell
no,
you.
yeah, right. There's no such thing as a typical day for me because it all varies based on what's going on. I mean, when we're going back to New York Fashion Week, for example, first and foremost, I'm always an athlete. No matter what's going on around me, it's built into my schedule of what I'm doing. Or I will shift my schedule kind of to the most that I can, where I can still go to practice. So, for example, we had fittings, we had events, and we had the show, and we had like after party. So I remember I got into the city. That's when I was still living in New Jersey. I went to practice. From practice, I went and I checked into my hotel. From there, I showered really quickly. I had a fitting, went to sleep. I woke up the next day, did practice, went to the gym. Then I had to go pick out clothes for the actual event. So I went to another fitting and then I went to another event. And then I think I had practice. Like it was literally just so much running around. Like this other past fashion week, I was just going to a whole bunch of shows. So again, I would go to a show, I would go to practice, then I would go lift. Then the next day, same thing. Like it was kind of running around. But I mean, always a common theme is always I have to lift, I have practice, and then it's everything else around it, like content creation. I have to find times on my days off to take photos for Instagram or film a TikTok, or I was making YouTube videos at a certain point and editing for that. Now the podcast is going to be built into that. So it's, like I said, there's no such thing as a typical day. I mean, I also referee to make some money as well because being an Olympian doesn't actually pay money. I know we all thought they're all millionaires. We're not. So I've ref competitions and I've had to fly from a competition I remember that I was in February before all this happened where I refed a competition. I immediately went to the airport. I had to leave a little bit earlier, flew to LA. I shot a commercial and then I got onto a plane on a red eye. And when I landed, I went straight to practice. So yeah, like there's no such thing as a typical day in my life.
But that's interesting what Monica said about the fashion side, because in September of 2019, I was involved in the same fashion show that Monica had modeled in. So looking at both of our worlds, she was telling you about the fittings and the clothing and everything like that. And then my side of that was getting the athletes to walk into the show, handling the athletes that arrive and having them do the red carpet interviews, right? And then, arranging their car service and hotel if needed. So it's kind of interesting to see how these two worlds kind of come together. One is, front of house and the other one's back of house. But that's kind of our two worlds merging from a marketing perspective to the kind of like the talent perspective, just for you guys to see the whole picture of how, like a fashion show comes together.
I feel like as young people who don't really attend events like this, we kind of just see like the final product. We see people walking down the red carpet or we see their beautiful outfit. So we don't see all the work that actually goes into
Yeah.
making an event like that. Well, I don't think we really think about it either. We kind of just look at our these big figures on like a red carpet
Right.
and we're just like, wow, that's so cool. And it doesn't strike us as being something that would be a process. It kind of just comes together because we don't see the backstory. We kind of just see what
Mhm.
happens.
No, there's
So
definitely a science to it. Everything from the guest list and who you have coming to the music and the DJ, what kind of vibe they're setting. Um, Honestly, even the seating arrangement of the fashion show, whoever gets to sit front row, second row, third row, there's a whole science to that. And then also, who gets kind of like premium kind of middle positioning. And then there's also the photographer pit at the end, right? What photographers get that spot so that when the models are at the end of the runway, you have the perfect shot. So it really is a science. And it's funny because the planning that goes into a fashion show that lasts 3 to 5 minutes is insane. How much planning goes into something that lasts and comes and goes like that.
And then there's also the order of the models as well, and what outfits they're
Exactly.
wearing. And
Yep.
also, like, we were doing the fitting, and I mean, this was like an athlete show, so a little bit different. So you have completely different body types trying on all sorts of different clothes. So like I had a set of like 5 outfits that we chose from, and kind of 2 where we were like, we need, like, I'm praying I get this, but they're like, yeah, well, this also depends on what the other people look like in these clothes. So there's just so much that goes into it.
That seems so busy. So I just want to ask about how you guys manage your work and your personal life. Because even as students, we kind of struggle having time for ourselves or just having personal time, balancing that with schoolwork and just projects, just stuff like that. So how do you guys do that?
Um, for me, I think step one is if you love what you do, then it's okay if work kind of dips into your personal time. And it's inevitable for me because I can't turn my brain off. I have my own business, which means I'm thinking 24/7 how to manage, maintain, grow, and monetize my business. And then make sure that my clients are all happy, right? So you can't turn that on or off. You can't turn creativity on or off. So if I have to come up with ideas and solutions and creative kind of breakthrough concepts for my clients, again, that's not just a 9 to 5 thing, that's 24 hours. And then also what I do is so connected to sports and entertainment, which is what you see in pop culture, which means the entertainment and sports news cycle is also 24/7. There's always new headlines, new things happening, new sports and entertainment moments. It's constantly a news cycle. So you have to kind of stay on top of it all. So it's only because I love what I do and I'm passionate about the business I'm in is what allows me to let work kind of dip into my personal time and my personal space. But for me to take care of me personally, I put a lot of attention into just self-care and wellness, from making sure I get good sleep to I eat the right things, I I stay healthy as much as possible, I work out as much as possible, I journal and meditate as much as I can. I just do things that just help balance and reset me internally so that I could put the best of me externally. So yeah, I unfortunately I work all the time.
I can agree to that because I'll be hanging out with Teresa and she's on her phone. I'm telling a story and then I look over and she's just on her phone. I'm like, oh, you heard nothing of what I said. But on that side too, she takes the best Instagram photos. So I'm not complaining.
I do. I'm
And she's always
Monica's
ready
personal
too.
photographer.
Literally, and you're always ready. There's photos that I don't even know are happening and you're sending them to me. So it's fine. I'm fine with you being on your phone all the time. For my side, I kind of have a lot to say about this. If on the journey to success, you're going to lose a lot of people on the way, but that's not a bad thing. I lost, I wouldn't say like I lost these people in my life, but they moved down in importance in my life. My closest friends became even closer friends. To them, it didn't matter that I would cancel plans. Like for my birthday, my best friend bought us tickets to some concert. I can't even tell you what concert this was. She lived in DC at the time. And I was like, yeah, I'll drive down for the weekend. We'll do this concert. It'll be awesome. And then the closer we got to it, the more I thought about it, where on the journey to success, there's also a lot of sacrifices you're going to have to make of, is this worth it? If I do fail, am I going to think back on this moment? Like, will this be the reason that I do fail? And I remember I texted and I was like, listen, I'm really sorry. I know we're like a week or 2 away, but I don't want to miss these practices. I thought I could do it. I thought I'd be okay with it, but I think it was like the month before like our last qualifying. I was like, I want to train. I want to go to practice. I need this, like, for me personally and mentally, whatever. I need this. I'm really sorry. I'm gonna have to bail on you. And she was, instead of being upset, this was a concert we both wanted to go to. She won these tickets. She texted me. She said, okay, I'll sell them and I'll come up to you for the weekend and we'll just hang out. I don't know. We'll drink wine. We'll just hang out in your apartment. And I'm getting like emotional talking about it because there was so many friends where I was like, oh, I can't go. Like, I can't go to your birthday. And they're like, you're a horrible friend. I was like, I get it. Like, it's your birthday or this is an event, but I'm going after this thing that could be a once in a lifetime dream. And you can't put aside this thing. Like, I'll come hang out with you another time, or I'll do something else. Like, I would send my friends flowers if I bailed. But like for my closest friends, like I said, they would be like, okay, that's fine. I get it. I'm here to support you. So those friends that are just your acquaintances, they're just gonna like move past you, and your close friends will always be there for you. And to be honest, I'm super grateful for these things because while I have a smaller circle of friends, I know I can call them in any given moment at 3 a.m. I can call them and I know they're going to be there for me. I know whatever I call Theresa for, I know if it's possible to drop anything, she'll be there for me. And I rather have those, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 friends than having like 20 friends that I can call in and give them to go hang out, because I know they're there for me and I know they're there to support me. So I think that's a big thing. So you should definitely, if you want to be successful, I think that's something that you should understand, that you're going to lose a lot of people along the way, but that's not a bad thing. You can outgrow people and it doesn't make you worse. It doesn't make you better, but simply people have different paths. So that's my first thing that I wanted to say. But in terms of having a personal life while doing these things, I mean, it's definitely difficult. Like I said, I've had to bail on people, sacrifices. There's times where it's a Friday or a Saturday, people want to do something. I'm like, I can't do it. I didn't have a lot of friends in high school and everybody kind of laughs about it. So like there's a few people that I hang out with from high school, like 2, but they'll say something. They're like, oh, do you remember this person? I've never heard that name. They're like, are you serious? They were in all our classes. I have no idea. Like I said, I was barely in school. And even when I was in school, I was there to do my schoolwork. I didn't care about talking to people. I came home from school. I think school ended 2:13. I jumped on the 3:18 bus. So I literally walked home. It was like a 5-minute walk, ate dinner, packed up what I need to pack up, went to the train, did my homework on the train, ate, went to practice, came back at like 10:30, 11, depending what practice I was at. And I was doing homework. I didn't care about hanging out with people. Like that was never a priority. And again, I don't know, it's a sacrifice that you have to take to be successful. But I mean, there's times where I like combine like hangouts into things that I'm doing. I mean, Theresa does the same thing. She's doing an event and she's like, let me invite my friends to come hang out. And it's like the easiest way. I mean, I was on a date with somebody and then we went to a fashion event afterwards, like it was like drinks and karaoke. So I combined those 2 things because that also helps, right? To fit in my tight schedule. And again, your friends will always be there for you, that you're good friends. And aside from that, what Theresa said, I do the same thing of I want to eat healthy for myself, for my mental health. I work out. I like to have a thing that kind of centers you. Like for me, it's going, I don't know, either to the park with my dogs or going to the beach with my dogs or just taking long walks. Like I had a really rough, like last 2 weeks, they were super duper busy. So yesterday I just walked around. I moved to a new apartment and I just walked around the area, just looking around, exploring. I took time to sit down. It just kind of helped, I don't know, relax me and bring me back to who I am. So those are kinds of things that I do.
And I think we both love to travel as well. Obviously, we travel a lot for work, but whenever we can travel for personal, that's also important because it just kind of gets you out of you're setting your scenery into a new place and it just mentally resets you. But I agree with what Monica said. The secret is very much of keeping a tight, trusted circle, and just knowing that they will make the effort for you and that you will make the effort for them. Our job and our career is based on having a very vast network of knowing thousands of people, right? That's kind of our job, is to be very connected, and having a very massive kind of network of people. But at home, in our personal lives, it's a very, very tight circle. And that's really important because you don't want to spread yourself too thin either. Self-care also means saying no a lot. And you have to learn. That's been the hardest thing for me, but I've learned it more and more. And the more that I say it, the more liberating it feels, and the more growth I feel comes from it personally and professionally.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's something, especially like teenagers, like our age, we like have so many friends, but then we don't have like that true circle. And I think that that's something super important that like, thank you for speaking about, because it's definitely something we have to like learn. It's okay to say no. It's okay to have like 4 to 5, especially in high school. Like it should be, it's like something not a lot of us hear, but definitely something we should know. And
Right.
we have like a few minutes left before we'll open the floor, but we wanted to know about like your guys's um, businesses and like what sparked your like creating, for example, your podcast or just your idea. Like since you spent so much time into these things, what was like the spark was like, I want to do that type of thing. And also for all you guys that have questions for Monica or Theresa, can you please text Janae? Janae, can you wave your hand? Just text Janae on the chat your questions. But yeah, Theresa, do you want to start?
Well, no, well, let's have Monica go first, because the podcast is such a new, exciting thing.
What I mean, in general, what inspires me is I would like, I don't know, like I said, I did YouTube for a bit, which I stopped because it was just a lot of work. But I think it's important, like what we were saying before, is when I was growing up, it wasn't as easy to reach the people you look up to, or successful people, successful women, whatever. But nowadays we have that opportunity. Like you can go jump on the person's Instagram, right? They have their question option. You can ask them questions. You can DM them. You can email them. It's a lot more accessible nowadays than it used to be. And I'm very curious of where I would be in the world had I had that opportunity. I would seize that. Like, I don't know, if you guys have any questions for me, DM me, send me an email. I will, if I can get to it, I'll answer it. And I wish a little bit more people were like that, because I think it's super duper important. But being able to share all of that and be real, like for example, on Instagram too, what we were saying of like people post all these glamorous things. I hate that. I hate that we lie so much to people. And you look at these people's Instagrams and you're like, oh, they have such a perfect relationship, or oh my God, they have such a perfect life. Look at them traveling. And there's situations where I've had to, for example, like I traveled to a not so glamorous place, but because of the situation, I had to post and make the place look a lot nicer. But you also don't want to bring down countries, right? Like you want to help them and bring people to come travel there. So different situations, but like even when it comes from the athletic perspective, there was a competition I won in January, and the girl that got second place posted it as if she won the competition. And it was like, when I read that, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, you got second place. It's still amazing. But why are you lying to these people and making it sound like she didn't write I won first, but I don't remember the wording, but it literally just sounded like she won the competition. And it's just such a lie. And then that, like, it gives influencers and content creators such a bad name, because they'll sell you this product, which is they're only selling it because because they're making money. I have so many companies that reach out to me, but I'm like, hey, I'm not going to share this to my followers because I need to try the product first. And there's so many times where I have to say no to money because I'm like, this is garbage. There's no reason anybody needs to be spending money on it. But that's not everybody. And then like, there's just a lot of things that I want to spread. Like I battled depression before the Olympics because I mean, it was just sacrifice. I wasn't hanging out with people. All I was doing was living, eating, breathing, sleeping, fencing. I was coaching fencing to make money. I was reffing fencing to make money, and I was training. It was one of the worst times of my life. And I was depressed. People don't know that. Again, people look at me and they're like, you're this amazing person. We're like, you're so lucky. No, I've had to work so hard for so many situations. I failed so many times. So I think that's something that, like I said, I hate the whole like concept of lying to people on social media. So I've always wanted to be real and honest about it. So I love that I can actually do that. And that's something that I hear all the time people respect me for. And then in terms of the podcast, I think I've had a lot of fun with it so far. It's very new. Like I said, I'm on episode, I think 4 or 5. I think next week is 6, whatever. But it's a lot easier to open up because I don't have like, YouTube is a lot harder because like you're staring at yourself and then you have to edit yourself and your faces, and it's just, I don't know, it seems a lot more vulnerable. But with the podcast setting, it's kind of more, I don't know, intimate, where I'm sitting talking. I'm actually 9 times out of 10 filming in my closet because that's the best sound. So now if you guys listen, you can imagine me sitting in my closet recording with my microphone. But it's, again, it's, I dive deep into talking about really real things. And it's just, I don't know, it's been really fun to do. Like we talk about like what happens in Olympic Village, dating horror stories, and I have a lot of topics to talk about. And then you get to actually even talk to your friends about different situations and learn about them, and it opens a lot of doors as well. Like you can, if you have a successful podcast, you can talk to people that, you know, you wouldn't be able to talk to otherwise. So, and then you can share their stories as well as your stories, and you can help educate people, or people can relate to you. Like there's podcasts that I listen to about, for example, I don't know, like stop chasing people, where somebody you want to date, you keep like texting them nonstop and they don't care about you, and it just leaves you feeling stupid because why are you chasing this person? And you're like, I do this all the time. I'm not alone. Here I thought I was an idiot doing this by myself, but hearing other people's stories kind of just makes you realize that you're a normal person. You beat yourself up less. So I don't know. It's been a lot of fun. I'm really excited about it, but that's what inspires me.
And I was there when Monica came up with the idea. It was the last week of September. We were in Mexico together, on behalf of a new hotel that had just opened that wanted her to come stay and shoot some content around the hotel in this certain region of Mexico. And we were out of our day-to-day element. So we were a little bit more creative and inspired, right? We were in the sun, and she just came up with this creative idea. She's like, I think I'm going to start a podcast. And then the fact that she took it all upon herself to research how to go from concepting it to producing it to editing it to booking the talent for it to being the host herself, to making sure she got the right guests and the right topics, in order, and then putting it on Spotify. And I kind of saw that whole journey happening. And then when I listened to that, first episode, it just made me realize that, like, again, podcasts, I mean, Monica has a great way of telling stories, right? And she's got a good voice and she's got a good way of articulating. And this is stuff that sometimes doesn't, come across on camera, but by voice on podcasts, it's so much better. And I think that she's found like a perfect platform, for her. But that just kind of shows, like, the discipline you have, the self-discipline you have to come up with an idea and all the way execute it, because guess what? Nobody was going to do it for her.
Yeah, it's a lot. I can't even begin to explain to you guys how much goes into a podcast. So if you do need help starting one, I can help you. We can take some time out of it, but it's a lot.
Thank you. Janae, I heard that you have a few questions. Do you want to start with those? Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we have several questions for the both of you. The first one is from Karima, and she would like to ask it herself. So, Karima, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi. My question is for Monica, and it's actually about the podcast and starting one, since me and my friends are thinking about starting a podcast soon. And I was wondering for any like general tips about starting it and like gaining an audience and whatnot.
All right, where do I begin? If you need help with any of the tools, whatever, like I said, shoot me an email. That was, I think, my biggest thing. But you're going to need a hosting platform. That's the first one. I recommend Anchor. It's free. That's my first thing. In terms of, you want to launch with 3 episodes. That's the best thing to help. I don't know. I don't remember the rules for it, but you want 3 episodes the day of launch. And I don't know, personally, I'm a huge planner. So when I came up with the idea, I sat down to think, I mean, you want to make sure that you have enough topics to go on, like, right? You don't want 6 topics. You don't want 10 topics, because that's going to die really quickly. So I sat down, I wrote out things, and I sat and brainstormed. I'm lucky that I have a platform on Instagram and on TikTok. I literally went on live and I was like, hey, I'm starting a podcast. What do you guys want to know about? So people help give me ideas. I mean, you can talk to your friends, your family. If you need help, I can try to help you. So I have a list of 82 topics so far. And I mean, I'm on episode 5 and I've already included like 10 more because like I'm walking the dogs, I'm thinking about things, or I'm listening to other podcasts. Another thing I would say, listen to as many podcasts as you can. You can learn so much from other people, what they're doing, what you like, what you don't like. It kind of helps envision you. Like now nonstop, what I talk about to anybody is podcasts. I'm like, oh, this other day I was listening to this podcast. I'm sure everybody's sick of it because that's all that I'm doing. I'm consuming. I want to make sure, in general, I think that's what you should be doing. Like if you want to go into something, I would consume that wholeheartedly, right? Like I joined TikTok. I spent like the first 2 weeks doing nothing but watching TikToks because you need to learn how successful people are doing it. So that's another thing that I would recommend. You want to have a good name. You're going to edit on GarageBand. You're going to cry when you're trying to learn it. It took me 2 days and I was crying for a good majority of those 2 days because it's the most complicated software I've ever used. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it.
Not glamorous, you guys. It's not
Glamorous
glamorous.
at all.
Whether you're traveling or in your own home working on a podcast, it's not glamorous.
No.
There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into what we do.
A lot of it. And if you think you're thinking it's enough, there's more to it.
All right. The next question is for Theresa, and Nicole would like to ask the question herself. So Nicole, if you're ready.
Hi, I was wondering what it was like to like grow up in the birthplace of Nike and how it affected the different opportunities you had and your decision to work there.
Growing up in Oregon and working at Nike had everything to do with my career today. It's almost as if I used to work at BMW and Miramax Films, which was part of Disney at the time, Donna Karan in fashion, but it's almost as if I don't even talk about those jobs because the one job that really like set me on the trajectory of my life and my career was Nike. Growing up in Oregon, of course, Nike is, the crown jewel company to work for there. So I always knew in college that I wanted to work there right out of university. And so it was actually part of a marketing class that I had where we had to write a practice resume and write a practice cover letter and send it off to a few almost like mock jobs that we wanted to apply for. And one of those mock jobs was me wanting to send my resume, my practice resume and cover letter into Nike. And literally a couple months later, I got a call from their HR department and they're like, hey, we have like this admin assistant role open. Would you be interested in coming in to interview? And I did. And I got the job and I was able to go to school full time and work 30 hours a week at Nike. So my last 2 semesters, my senior year, I was literally like school from like 7 to 10. And then I worked at Nike from 10 to 5. And then I'd go to class that evening from 6 to 9. And I did that for 2 full semesters so that I could get my foot in the door at Nike and finish my college degree. And so I did that. And actually, by doing that, Nike actually paid for my last 2 semesters in school. They reimbursed me for my tuition. And then right out of college, I stayed at Nike and worked in various different marketing roles. I left Nike one time to move to New York and do some other jobs, but then I came back to Nike 4 years later, and I stayed there for another 5 years. So, and by staying there for those 5 years, I was the head of communications for the Jordan brand, which really sort of opened up my world and my network in a way that allowed me to launch the company that I have today. So I give Nike and Jordan brand all the credit in the world. They're still family to me. I'm still in touch with many, many people there. And yeah, it's I owe them everything, to be honest with you. I call it the School of Nike because I never went on to get my MBA, which a lot of people at the time, kind of in my field and in my class did. But I felt that working at Nike was like a real life MBA, a real life graduate degree. And it's like when you graduate from the University of Nike, and this is not just me, but many people that work there, it takes you on to do some really incredible things. There's people that are running major businesses, major brands, even their own companies that have come from Nike. So there's a great alumni network there as well. Nike should pay me for what I just said.
I recorded it. We'll send it over.
All right. Thank you for that, Theresa. So the next questions are directed to both of you, and it's from Laura. So Laura, if you're ready.
Yeah, hi. So both of my questions are about entrepreneurship, so I will just ask them at the same time. So the first one is, what do you guys kind of consider the entrepreneurial spirit? Like, because, you know, there's people that really are into founding things, and others, like one of you said, are more like on the safe side and no, I want a safe job. And then the other one would be, did you ever feel like being a woman held you back from reaching your goal?
Monica, you want to go first?
I was answering a direct message from
Oh,
Nicole, so I missed the question.
I'll jump in. Has being a woman affected me from doing my role? Was that one of the questions?
Yes, like reaching your goal.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, working in sports, it is already male dominated, but I never felt as if being a woman negatively affected me. And I feel like there's a couple of reasons why. One, it's almost as if I just didn't let my gender or my ethnicity get in the way. I just wanted my work to speak completely for itself. So for a long time, I just kind of walked into meetings, not even realizing that I was a woman or an Asian. I just walked in as a person, and a person that knew her job, knew how to do her job, and had all of her ducks in a row, so that when she had to present, she had all the facts and figures down to the point where I was genderless, right? Completely. So it's almost like that was the mental trickery for me, was to not ever feel as if, you know, it was working against me. And I think, you know, being a woman in business also has a lot of benefits to it. I think we are so nurturing by nature, and we have a lot of soft skills that come to play in situations like conflict resolution, like team building, like creative problem solving, and having to think really fast on your feet. Sometimes these soft skills really sort of are important. And I think women have this much more than men. So, so yeah, so I wouldn't see, you know, being a woman being a negative thing. I would always try to walk in feeling like it's going to work in my favor.
When it comes to me, I would say the biggest thing is, like, male athletes are respected a lot more than female athletes. I think that's slowly changing, because I think slowly people are starting to understand that I mean, we're equals, but also like it's a lot to be a female athlete. Like we deal with a lot of things. I mean, hormones, for example, we go through something every month that men don't have to go through, and it affects our mood, our ability. Like I was reading about it, like there's certain days that we're better at math than others. So sometimes we become superhumans. I don't know. I read about this. It's crazy. Like certain days of our cycle, like we're better at math, or we're better at logical thinking, but then we're better at like emotional stuff. So that's, I mean, it comes into play. I mean, I'm sure we all understand it, where there's days where you just cry for no reason. And you're like, I don't know what's going on with me. Men don't have to deal with that, the mood swings, right? So that definitely affects us. But it also, like, for example, when you go into an Adidas store, what's on the men's side? What are you seeing? You're seeing male athletes. On the women's side, what are you seeing? You're seeing models. Why? Why are we not seeing female athletes the same way we're seeing male athletes? I think that's absurd. So I think that's a big difference, and that's like my driving force. That's something I want to be able to change. And yeah, I mean, like hearing comments all the time, like when it comes to just fencing, of like a guy being like, oh, if I ever lost to a woman, I'd quit. Why? I get there's a difference. They are, I hate to admit it, but men are going to be faster. They're going to be stronger, but I can outthink you at the same time. So I know when I'm fencing a man, I know I'm going to have to be 2 steps ahead of him. And in order to make that happen, I need that distance because they're stronger than I am. So there's different ways to do it. So I'm like, but that's stupid thinking. I get it. You're faster and stronger, but I can outthink you. I can have more experience, or I can just understand this. It doesn't mean that you're worse than me. It just means that you lost. But like, what difference is it if you lose to a guy versus you lose to a girl? There's no difference. It's the same. And two, like, you tell somebody that like you're a female athlete and they're like, oh, you're a female athlete. That doesn't count. Don't worry about it. It's like, why is that a comment? Again, like, why? I'm an athlete. I could be working even twice as hard than a man. I could be more talented than a man. So why are you throwing me aside because I'm a female athlete versus a male athlete? So things like that.
I'd also go back to the fact where I said, for a long part of my career, especially earlier on, I would just walk in kind of genderless because I just wanted my work to speak for itself. But feel like now later on in my career, as I feel like I have nothing, like I feel like I don't have to prove anything to people as much. And I feel like I'm a lot more confident in my abilities in my work. Now I embrace the female side of me a lot more, where I actually use it to my business benefit, as in I want to take on more female clients. I want to work with more women's rights and women's equality causes. I want to, the same work and the same success and the same results that I've created for my male clients, I want to apply the same philosophy and the same tactics to a female client. So now I feel like I can be so much more open and embracing that more, whereas before I tried to kind of just hide behind my work, and as a result hide behind being a woman. But I'm a lot more proud of it now than I was before.
Okay, thank you so much for that. The next question is for you again, and Niana would like to ask you her question. So
I was wondering, what were the first steps you took to make your idea for your company become reality?
I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always knew I wanted to start my own company. I just didn't know when and I didn't know how. But I go off of like feeling a lot and just kind of feeling like, okay, my gut tells me this was probably the right time. And I was working at Nike at the time, again, head of communications for the Jordan brand. I actually took about 6 months to write a business plan while I had a full-time job. And the business plan was, how do I start a company? So kind of like what Monika did in researching how to start a podcast, I literally researched how to start a company. And I went and did everything from designed a website that didn't go live yet. It was kind of done behind the scenes, but I just had a website design. I asked some graphic designers to work on my logo and my branding. I worked on a business plan on what kind of clients I would get, what I would charge these clients, how much money I could potentially make in year one. And then I also put together like an emergency plan where if I don't make any of that money, what do I have to fall back on? Okay, I have some savings. I can sell some of my Nike stock. I can cash out my vacation hours when I quit Nike. I can cash out a little bit of my 401k retirement. So I kind of had like different scenarios of my business plan, so that by the time I went into Nike and I resigned, I had a feeling they would try to keep me, which I knew that if I didn't have my business plan dialed, then I might be lured back into just staying with the company, right? But because I had it so tightly dialed and so worked out that when they did try to keep me, I was like, no, I'm already so far along with literally pushing the go button and starting this company. And I didn't want to let myself down either with all that work that I did to pursue a dream. I didn't want to be talked into just staying in a comfortable job. So, so it took time. It took 6 months for me to really kind of lay the groundwork, at the same time having a full-time job and at the same time trying to have like a personal life. But that was what kind of pushed me out the door, was knowing that I had done the groundwork to the point where I wasn't just gonna, leave the company and then wake up the next day with no job saying, okay, well, now what? I didn't want to be in that position.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so the next question is directed to Monica, and the question will be asked by JD. So if you're ready.
Yeah. Okay. Who influenced you to become a fencer? Like,
I don't know if I would say influence me. That's a tough one. So my mom was working at a Polish and Slavic bank, and my first fencing coach was a client at that bank, and I would say it's a combination. He would talk to her about it, and he was like, you should bring your daughter in. She can stay after Polish school because it's a good Polish school, and she'll be able, it's a good scholarship opportunity. Maybe she'll like it. I remember when I was younger, I was doing gymnastics, but for those of you that don't know, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm not gymnastics height at all. And I was growing like a weed. So like the coach was like, I think you should find a different sport for your daughter. I don't think she's made for gymnastics. So then afterwards, I wasn't really doing anything like physically. And my mom just brought me into practice. I was, like I said, 8 or 9 years old. It's funny, actually, my recent podcast episode was about this, but they just handed me a weapon. They said, hit the other kid. I mean, that's kind of like every kid's dream, right? To be able to hit other kids and nobody yells at you. So I was sold from that point on. And then, so I don't know if the answer is my first fencing coach, my mom, my grandpa kept me in it for a really long time. He was the only one, even though like at 14, he kind of laughed at me, but he was always a huge fan of mine and a supporter. There was like times where there was a competition and my mom was like, there's no way, like we can't afford this, like I can't send you to this, it just doesn't make sense. And my grandpa was like, no. And they lived in Poland, so that for them this was a lot of money. They're like, no, we'll send you money for this competition. I think it's important that she goes to it. So I don't know, I would say it's like the combination of those three people.
okay, thank you.
Okay. So the next few questions are directed to both of you. So the next one is, what's your opinion on toxic positivity? So how do you influence women to be productive in a way that's not toxic and not forcing them to abandon other important aspects like mental health?
Go for it, Monica. I mean, well, it's only because you spoke about mental health earlier and your own kind of battle with depression. So, and also working in sports and the productivity in sports can be toxic.
Yeah,
right.
I'm trying to think of like, how to answer this. I don't know how how to go about it. I mean, I guess I would say kind of like we're always going to be more emotional, and that's, I don't know, I don't like that emotions are looked at negatively. Like we look at men and they're like, they don't show emotions because it's not manly, and things that'll be said to like women of, like if I lose, I mean, for me, fencing's my passion. For me, losing like physically hurts me, and that's in every single, maybe it's not a good thing, but it's how I am. Like I can't have fun playing a game. If we play Monopoly and I lose, it physically hurts me. It upsets me. My friends don't play games with me because I just can't lose. I hate it. And I'll cry because, not when I lose in Monopoly, that's ridiculous, but with fencing, right? I put my whole everything into it. When I lose a match, I cry because I just did so much for this competition and I lost. And hearing like there's times when people are like, you should man up, stop crying. That's not an answer. I'm hurting. I need to deal with these emotions and then I can move forward. So I think that's definitely something that's really toxic, but it's viewed as positive. I don't know. I don't really know aside from that how to answer that question, to be honest. But that's the only one I got. Theresa, you got anything better?
No, it's a good question. It's a tough question.
I'd have to think longer about it to really give you a better answer.
I mean, I feel like I have a work ethic that I've been told by others where it's like, Theresa, you're a beast. Like you need to just rest and relax. And I feel like people that I bring on to work with me or for me on projects, I expect them to have that same level of intensity. And sometimes they don't because they have different circumstances or they have different personal lives or they have different responsibilities and priorities outside of work that I may or may not know about, and their own struggles outside of work that I may or may not know about. So, you know, sometimes I have to check myself to just sort of loosen up a little bit so that my productivity and my like pushing them for productivity isn't seen as forceful or toxic or like too much for them, because I don't want to overwhelm them and I don't want to intimidate them and I don't want to chase them away, because I want them to help me work on projects that bring out the best of them. So I have to check myself a lot. I have to also check myself for myself, as in, you know, me being overproductive sometimes is toxic for me and my own self-care and self-health. So it's a constant sort of struggle, because again, when I say I work 24/7, I kind of think I do work 24/7. So I have to make sure it's as healthy and as balanced as possible. And then surrounding myself with people who, you know, we have a common goal, we respect each other's work and style of work enough to where we give each other autonomy to get the job done, just knowing that the process about going about it could be very, very different. And that also goes back to keeping a tight circle, because it's hard to trust people with your business. I mean, my business is my baby, and I don't let everybody, you know, just come in and access or touch my business. So I have to kind of vet them in a way where I know that we're going to produce results and we're going to have similar work ethic, even if the intensity might be different between me and them. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, thank you so much for that. So we have just one last question. And it's for the both of you. So the final question is that if you both have any tips or suggestions from graduating to the working life, what should we expect and what advice would you give us if we want to go down the same path as both of you?
I would say, when I've said it before, if you're always going to have naysayers, you're going to have people telling you that what you're doing is not possible, it's too difficult, why don't you choose an easier path? Yeah, there's sacrifices along the way. Keep a close circle of supportive people, like-minded people, supportive people. And just always keep an idea of what your goals are. Just remember what those are. I would remind myself when I was going after the first Olympics of what was important to me. And I would, like, my initial answer, for example, to a situation would be like, yes, I want to go to this concert. Yes, I want to go to this. But then I'd be like, wait, 6 months down the line, if I fail at what I was doing, am I going to look back on this moment and have regrets? Or will I know that I did everything humanly possible to be successful, and regardless of whether or not I fail, I'll still be proud of myself for getting here? That's what I would say my tips are.
I'd probably say my tips are, like, there's a saying that I live by a lot, which is like, if you say it, you will see it. If you can say it, you can see it. As in, like, manifestation is very, very important to me in my business and my life. And I feel like when I take the time to write and journal, I keep a business journal and like a personal journal, and I keep two journals, you know, one's in the room with me, my personal journal, the other one's on my desk with me, my work journal. But I write a lot of things that I manifest for my business and professionally, and types of clients I want to have, clients that have the same value system as me, the kind of projects that I would love to work on, who I'd love to work on it with, you know, how I want to make money doing it. And when I feel like when I write these things down, they just automatically become part of my universe and my orbit and my psyche. And then a few months down the road, things just sort of like show up for me. And it's just very, very strange. Nothing is magic. Nothing is like, you know, it's not just like, wow, Theresa's so lucky. No, Theresa just works really hard and also like is very intentional with what she wants and writes it down and puts like a plan against it, so that when it does finally fall into her lap, she's ready to seize the opportunity and go. So I would say do as much of that as possible. I would also say the second thing is, I know that you and your generation is very digital, very virtual, right? And especially now in quarantine, we're all very digital, very virtual. But I would say if and when we're able to go out into the outside world again, is to don't discount the importance and the value of like that physical connection. That's really important, because not only when we get out of quarantine is there going to be such pent up demand for people to have human to human connection again, but sometimes those little things count. So I love the fact that we can talk to each other now from all around the world in one room together and get this conversation done. But you know, sometimes when you write a handwritten note and a card to somebody and send it to them, it means a lot, right? Because it's not a text message, it's not just a DM, it's literally a handwritten card. And I do that sometimes for clients, and it means a lot. Sometimes it means sending just a really nice, thoughtful gift that shows up to their doorstep. Sometimes a handshake, a physical human skin to skin handshake, means so much more than an email, right? So just think about how you can adjust to the physical world, just taking everything that you guys are experts at in the digital virtual space, but try to create physical interactions where you can, because I think that will go a long way as you look to, you know, build your career and your network and your future businesses.
All right.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much to the both of you.
So
Thanks, guys.